I'm about to start painting the orc stomper. Because it's going to be painted yellow like the rest of the miniatures, I want to try and tone it down some. So what I'm going to do is the bottom of the miniature where the skirt is, I'm going to do a little bit of work towards making that darker. I'm also going to try and make it darker on the top of the miniature as well, so it helps to give a bit of contrast to the brightness of the fact that it's a very large miniature which is painted yellow. Hopefully when I'm finished it won't be quite so overly bright. Here are all the sub-assembly parts. For the arm here, I've already painted checkers before, so in my video Killer Cans Baby, so I will leave a link in the description for that part. But what I wanted to show on this part instead was, as you can see here, the cylinders. So you've got the main rod part here, and over a build up of time, what ends up happening is some of the oil from the hydraulics would actually come out of this, and what happens is you end up with a ring. But first off, what I wanted to point out was you can actually get some cylinders where the rods can be quite long compared to the actual cylinder. But what you can do is you can use something like a piece of rod, or maybe another paintbrush, to give yourself an idea of how long that area is by just simply marking it with your finger. And you can check the size. And this one's about the same size. The reason for this is if you've got a rod which might be a lot longer, this is a good way of giving yourself an idea of the distance. And what we want to do is we want to get some paint, which is a black paint. And then some weathering powder. The reason why we want to apply the weathering powder is it thickens the paint up for this and makes the paint somewhat lumpy. And then we want to determine where we want the mark. So this mark would indicate that when the part of the cylinder when the rod side closes up into the cylinder, and then when it pulls back out, it will leave this mark. The last stage for this is to use a little bit of null oil, and you want to create some streaks. So the purpose of this look is when the cylinder closes up, you get some of the oil comes through, and over time you get muck gets into the oil, so when it closes it will give this lump of muck and oil there, and then when it comes out it drags the oil out like that, hence why you'd end up with the streaks. I've feathered the skirt of the stomper with an orange paint. I've done a video previously with some Deff dreads which shows the technique of feathering. If you want to watch that, there'll be a link provided below. And after this I'm going to put checkers onto the bottom of the skirt to give it a nice darker look at the bottom. Primarily now for the front, especially at the bottom of the stomper, around the skirt and slightly above this area, I want to show how pieces of the paint have been chipped off, because obviously it's a large model, so it would be the type of thing that would knock down trees and buildings, stuff like that. All you need for this is a little bit of sponge and a small amount of silver paint. Pick areas where you think the paint will get chipped, and you just need to dab the sponge into places and just repeat the process. And you'll end up giving it a nice look where all these areas where the paint's been chipped off. You're always going to have certain places where paint will naturally get chipped off on a regular basis. So places like a hatch, for example. In the case of this miniature, you've also got some ladders at the back. Just with a sponge and a bit of silver paint, you can just pick out a few areas and make it look like the paint's been chipped off. For the sides and the bottom of the feet, because for these particular miniatures I've been doing them with mud bases, I've made myself a small mix of this water effect and some brown paint, and all I need to do is lightly stipple areas on the feet to try and make it look like mud's been splashing around from the impact as the feet hit the ground. If you want to make the mud look more thick and clumpy, you can always add some sand into the mix, and that will make it look like there's areas where the mud's quite lumpy then.